Most people assume debt is a knowledge problem. They believe that those who struggle financially simply don't understand interest rates, or payment schedules, or basic financial mathematics. The assumption is simple and comforting. Smarter people make better financial decisions, and bad outcomes are the result of ignorance. But behavioral psychology tells a very different story. Some of the most damaging debt decisions are made by highly intelligent, well-educated, high-earning individuals. Engineers, doctors, lawyers, senior professionals, entrepreneurs, people who understand numbers, probabilities, and systems, yet still fall into debt traps that quietly limit their future freedom. This isn't a failure of intelligence. It's a failure of how the human brain processes risk, reward, identity, and time. Debt decisions are rarely logical. They're emotional, psychological, and deeply contextual. They are shaped less by spreadsheets and more by how the brain experiences pain, relief, and anticipation. One of the most powerful psychological forces behind debt is temporal discounting. The human brain consistently values immediate rewards more than future consequences. A purchase today feels real, tangible, and emotionally satisfying. A repayment 6 months or 5 years from now feels abstract and distant. When someone takes on debt, the benefit is immediate. The cost is delayed. The brain is wired to prioritize what it can experience now over what it must imagine later. This bias causes people to underestimate the true long-term cost of borrowing and overestimate their future ability to manage it. Monthly payments feel small in isolation, but collectively, they quietly erode flexibility, reduce optionality, and narrow future choices. The danger isn't obvious at the moment of borrowing. It unfolds gradually, often unnoticed. Another major trap is the normalization of debt. Over time, borrowing has become socially acceptable and emotionally neutral. Credit cards, car finance, buy no pay services, personal loans, they are marketed not as financial risks, but as lifestyle tools. When everyone around you carries debt, debt stops feeling dangerous. It feels normal. Behavioral studies show that humans judge risk based on social comparison far more than objective probability. If debt is widespread, it feels safe, even when the underlying numbers suggest otherwise. Normalization dulls caution. What once required serious consideration becomes routine. Borrowing is no longer a decision, it's a default. This leads directly into another psychological bias: mental accounting. The brain categorizes money into imaginary buckets: salary money, bonus money, gift money, credit money. Even though all money has the same value, the brain treats it differently depending on its source. Borrowed money feels less real at the moment of spending. Because repayment is delayed, the psychological pain of payment is postponed. This weakens restraint and increases spending. It's not carelessness, it's neurological design. This is why credit cards consistently lead to higher spending than cash or debit. The brain disconnects the action from the consequence. When the consequence is invisible, behavior changes. Debt is also deeply tied to identity protection. Many people borrow not because they want more, but because they fear less. A reduced lifestyle feels like a threat to identity. Change in standard of living feels like failure. The brain is wired to protect identity aggressively. When income fluctuates, expectations rise, or circumstances change, debt becomes a way to preserve a version of oneself without adjusting behavior. Borrowing allows continuity, at least temporarily. But debt doesn't solve the problem, it delays it. And delayed problems usually grow. Highly capable individuals are especially vulnerable to overconfidence bias. People who succeed in complex domains trust their ability to figure things out later. They assume future income will rise, opportunities will appear, solutions will emerge. Behavioral research consistently shows that people rate themselves as more capable than average, particularly under uncertainty. Debt thrives in uncertainty. People assume the future will cooperate. Sometimes it does. Often it doesn't. Another powerful driver is loss aversion. Humans experience loss more intensely than gain. Reducing spending feels like loss. Downsizing feels painful. Saying no feels restrictive. Debt offers a way to avoid that emotional pain in the short term. Rather than adjusting consumption downward, people borrow to smooth discomfort. This preserves emotional stability now, while increasing financial instability later. The brain chooses short-term emotional relief over long-term security, not because it's irrational, but because it's prioritizing survival in the present moment. Debt also exploits complexity blindness. Interest rates, compounding, fees, and repayment structures are cognitively demanding. The brain prefers simplicity. When information becomes complex, people default to surface-level understanding. Monthly payments become the anchor. If the payment feels manageable, the debt feels acceptable. Total cost fades into the background. Long loan terms reduce monthly pain while dramatically increasing long-term cost. This is why extended financing is so effective. Complexity hides consequence. Environmental design plays a critical role as well. Modern debt products are engineered to feel frictionless. One-click approvals, instant credit increases, deferred payments, seamless integration into everyday transactions. Neuroscience shows that friction is one of the strongest behavioral regulators. The more effort required, the more likely the brain is to pause and evaluate. Remove friction, and behavior accelerates. Debt thrives in low-friction environments. There's also the phenomenon of stress borrowing. People feel overwhelmed, anxious, or trapped. Borrowing can feel like control. It provides immediate relief. Bills get paid. Pressure eases. Breathing space appears. But this relief is temporary. Over time, debt increases baseline stress, creating a feedback loop. Stress leads to borrowing. Borrowing increases stress. Even highly capable individuals can become trapped in this cycle. Importantly, wealthy individuals are not immune to these psychological biases. They simply design systems that protect them from their own impulses. They separate consumption from borrowing, establish rules before emotion enters the decision. They introduce friction deliberately, treat debt as a balance sheet instrument, not an emotional coping mechanism. They're also distinguished clearly between productive and unproductive debt. Productive debt is tied to assets that generate income, efficiency, or appreciation. Unproductive debt funds consumption that fades while obligations remain. This distinction is psychological as much as financial. Productive debt is evaluated analytically. Consumption debt is often justified emotionally. Smart people make terrible debt decisions when emotion overrides structure. This is why simplistic advice like all debt is bad or debt is good fails. Debt is neither. It is leverage. It magnifies behavior. Without discipline, it amplifies fragility. Structure, it amplifies progress. Understanding the psychology of debt fundamentally changes decision-making. It shifts focus from approval to impact, from monthly affordability to long-term flexibility, from emotional relief to strategic outcome. Perhaps the most important realization is this: debt is rarely a sudden financial emergency. It is usually a behavioral pattern repeated over time, and patterns can be changed. When people slow decisions down, introduce friction, model worst-case scenarios, and separate identity from consumption, debt loses much of its power. The illusion fades. Control returns. 8 stops being a trap when it is treated as a strategic tool rather than an emotional escape. And that shift from reaction to design is what separates those who are controlled by debt from those who use it without being owned by it.